We've been talking for like a month about how big this month of June is for a lot of programs, and Texas is no different. You remember we warned you about 3 months ago that we didn't speak the word off season around here because there wasn't going to be one. But even if you weren't on board with that, you needed to. Especially if you work in this industry, there will be no vacation time. That's what we told you 3 months ago, and people are finding out about it now. June is no beach season, especially if you're working for maybe, I don't know, Horns 24/7 right now. Those folks, Mike Roach and Nick Harris, if it's possible to work 25-hour days, those guys have been doing it this weekend. It has been a massive recruiting weekend in Austin, Texas. And I tell you this, and I need you to be locked in on it, even if you're not a Texas fan, because this is one of those classic Keystone ripple effect type situations. It's why we choose these kinds of segments to do, even though it focuses on one team, it has to do with every one of you. I go over to Horns 24/7 the other day, and as of a couple of hours ago before I came on air, they had a 34-page deep thread on that message board just about this weekend's official visitors and unofficial visitors. Huge weekend for Texas. So how does this impact an Arizona State fan? How does this impact an Auburn fan? Arch Manning's on campus. That's how it impacts all of you. So Arch Manning is the headliner there. Certainly not the, well, there you see. So Jesse's showing you pictures. It's Arch Manning and a cast of seemingly thousands. It's been a really big weekend. Name after name after name. They're going to have another big one next weekend. And so this is not unique to Texas because this is going on at a lot of major programs, but a lot of those other programs don't have a first-year staff in the house. They do at Texas right now. I'm going to tell you one that's, aside from the obvious, really important in just a second. Arch Manning, for the 14 of you who don't know who I'm talking about, yeah, it is him by that last name. So number one quarterback in the 2023 recruiting cycle. You saw him in the Texas gear. There were rumors of him at the baseball game. Then those got confirmed. And then there was rumor Sam Ehlinger hanging out with Arch Manning at the baseball game. And as far as I can tell, those got confirmed too. So how big was this weekend? Well, not only was Arch Manning in town, but Arch Manning did something that is a hallmark of many a program that is on the way back up in recruiting. He had pictures of him taken with fans at an airport. That sounds weird, and if you are a European soccer fan, you just happen to be tuned in for whatever reason because you came to the wrong YouTube channel, that makes no sense to you. Let me tell you something. You have got to get big enough talent in town that it is such a huge deal that hasn't been happening in months past that people at the airport, even Austin International Airport, are taken aback by it enough to where they got to be snapping pictures. And that was happening. There was actually a poster on Horns 24/7 that snapped a picture, and that's valuable. I'd save that for an NFT down the road, because if Arch Manning does commit to Texas, that's worth something. That's worth something. So you can take that advice for free. There's a big question that everyone's going to ask. Can Texas land Arch Manning? Well, the short answer is yeah, absolutely they can land him. You know how much Texas has going for it? Not the least of which is the brand new head coach in the house that just put on a clinic to end all clinics at the University of Alabama. Well, how did he do that, Josh? Well, he had a cupboard full of talent. Quarterback and wide receiver. Well, he had the kind of quarterback he's trying to recruit now in Arch Manning. So this is why weeks 1 and weeks 2 are going to be so huge for Texas this year. Because Alabama's in it for Arch Manning. There's no guesswork about what Alabama is under Nick Saban. We've long since known they're legitimate. There's no guesswork about Clemson. We've long since known what they are under Dabo Swinney. We don't know what Texas is. And the Manning family does not know what Texas is under Steve Sarkisian. And this is not a situation, I don't think at least, where you're going to get a guy to buy into pure vision. Vision is great, and I'm told they did as good a job as they possibly could this weekend selling that vision. I think they hit a home run. I think they are squarely in the mix for Arch Manning. But eventually, they're going to have something tangible, because there's going to be too much tangible result to be seen from Alabama and the likes of Clemson that Texas has got to get it done. They got to show you something in weeks 1 and 2, because if you are to come out of summer on this massive recruiting hype wave and then you start to show product on the field earlier than anyone expected, that starts a snowball effect. That's how you really start to take off in recruiting, even in year 1 under a new staff. And that's how incredible things can happen. If they stumble, that doesn't mean they can't eventually get it on track. But I'm talking about this class and the 2023 class. If you really want to instantly have bang in recruiting, week 1 against Louisiana, that's going to be a spotlight game for most of the country. And then week 2 at Arkansas. That's going to be a spotlight game for a lot of the country. They got to get it done there because a lot of guys like Arch Manning, even if they want to go to Texas, even if they're enamored with playing for Steve Sarkisian, you don't have to show them national championship wins, but you got to show them evidence. You got to show them reason to buy into the vision that you're pitching. It's felt different in Texas this weekend, though. You guys feel it if you're in Austin. I know good and well you do. I've felt it over here in Nashville. I got enough Texas buddies that I talk to that have calibrated my ability to feel out the Texas fan base that when I saw my iJosh light up all weekend, I know this wasn't normal. This has not been normal even for the Tom Herman era. See, a lot of folks will come to you and say, oh, they've always had talent. Not quite like this, they hadn't. And even if they did, they didn't develop it. So you got a new cast in the house, and you've got an elite recruiting weekend, and you got a staff that runs around talking about being all gas, no brakes. Well, that doesn't mean anything more than wording on the back of a cereal box until they show it to you, and that's what they've been. I don't know if those guys have slept very much recently, but here's how you know Texas recruiting is trending in the right direction. Other fan bases are speaking up, and they're saying, oh, really? You're going to win a championship with unofficial visits and official visits? No, they're not. It's true. They didn't land 15 or 20 of these kids this weekend. They didn't land Arch Manning. They got closer to it, certainly, than they were this time last week. How do you think you build elite classes, though? How do you think Ohio State lands kids? You think they just call them up and say, would you like to commit? No, they go through the recruiting hype waves just like Texas is right now. So we've seen some recruiting hype waves flame out. That's true enough. But I've never seen, at least to date, any program build themselves to an elite level without recruiting hype that eventually validates itself in the form of commitments. So Texas is in the process of that, the early stages of that process. But I am over here, at least for the interest of my Texas buddies, I'll wave that burnt orange pom-pom because a good Texas is good for late cake.